Good day, everyone, and welcome to this special conversation marking the International Women's Day. Let me start by apologizing for starting this meeting today instead of yesterday, the International Women's Day. We did try to go live, but we had some technical problems. But we're grateful that you decided to join us today. So thank you for your understanding and your patience and for joining us as we moved it to Zoom. And I hope that whatever we plan to achieve, we also will get to achieve, whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn or Zoom. Okay, once again, welcome. My name is Adamma Wokoma. I am the Director of Communications for Esdg Global. I am also a broadcaster and a gender activist. Also, I am an empowerment self-defense teacher. So in addition to talking, I fight for a living. All right. This year's theme, Give to Gain, reminds us that when we invest in women and girls through education, through safety, through opportunities and justice, we're not just giving, we are building stronger communities, stronger economies, and a more equitable world. So today we are joined by two remarkable leaders whose works embody this idea. Um, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Dawn Malotane Lindsay. Dr. Lindsay is the Executive Director of Esdg Global, and her work focuses on equipping individuals and communities with tools to prevent violence and live with confidence and agency. But of course, that's not all she does. You get to hear more about her. But for now, join me, please, in welcoming Dr. Lindsay.
Thank you.
Also, we have JB Favor. She is the Executive Director of Paddock Area Scholars Society. It is an organization that creates life-changing educational opportunities for people, women and girls, especially in South Sudan. Well, again, that's not all there is to her, but please join me in welcoming JB Favor.
Thank you so much for that beautiful intro, Dama. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you both for joining us as we explore what it truly means to gain in the pursuit of rights, justice, and opportunities for women and girls. Well, let me begin by, I think it's best to start by getting to meet you. Let's know you the way you want us to, apart from just the short bio we've done. So let's start with you, JB Favor. Let's get to meet you.
Okay, thank you so much, Adama. My name is JB Favor. You can call me JB. I serve Pass USA, which in full is Paddock Area Scholars Society, like you rightly mentioned. And I'm serving Pass as its director. And the work that we do is one that is life-changing. I'm so in agreement with your opening statements. We offer South Sudanese youth, especially young women, with full ride university scholarships because we believe that education, not just any form, but higher education, is one of the fastest pathways to escaping extreme poverty. And so we provide these full ride university scholarships and wraparound support. I have been in the nonprofit and grant writing sector for not so long, but long enough to have realized that there is a lot of need in this field. As most of us here might agree. I have long been in agency marketing for over 7 years before I transitioned into grant and nonprofits consultant before I found my way to Pass USA and began to serve as its director. I've had a journey that has been very much focused in giving back to others. When I was in the writing sector, I did ghostwriting to clients. So it was in the form of helping people who could not tell their own stories tell their stories. And so after that, I still transitioned into agency marketing, which I focused on giving back, helping brands and people tell their stories in a way that would resonate with their audiences. So it was pretty easy for me to find my footing once I moved to the nonprofit world. That's a little bit summary of who I am and journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. All right, it's over to you now, Dr. Don Lindsay. Let's get to meet you.
Hi, yes, thank you for allowing me to, give a little background on myself. I was born in South Africa under the apartheid regime, and it was during my high school years that I participated as an activist in overthrowing our apartheid government. And so, yes, I was on the front lines of liberating our country. And I, because of that, didn't graduate high school. So I ended up going into trade school, and that's where I did construction. So I am a tradeswoman by trade, and that is how I also got into my first business in construction. So I have been in business since the age of 7 and always been a business owner. Today, I lead ESD Global. I am also a business owner, very tech. And then I also I'm launching my first. I've been doing a program where I mentor youth and especially people of color in the business space. My program has been very successful in helping minorities and youth navigate the economic landscape. And because it was so successful, I am now launching it as an international business school on May the 2nd. And I'm proud of my students. I have young people as young as 13 earning $4,000 a week. And I believe that not just education, but having access to opportunities as young as possible for Black people and for our youth is really what is going to set us apart in terms of taking back economic power. So I'm very happy to be here and also to just share based on my lived experience and my background in today's discussions.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're both people into education, JB setting up schools, Dawn launching a business school. And well, that makes me feel like a student, you know. All right. Okay, so let me begin again by asking you both to reflect on this year's International Women's Day theme. That's why we're here after all, The International Women's Day this year is centered around the idea of give to gain, So from your perspectives, what does this theme mean in the context of advancing rights and justice for women and girls globally? This time, I'd like to start with Dr. Lindsay.
Yes, for me, give to gain means understanding that investing in the safety, investing in the education, and in the economic empowerment of women and girls is not charity. It is a strategy. When we give women access to safety, knowledge, and opportunity, the return on that investment multiplies across families, communities, and entire economies. Women reinvest in their children, they reinvest in their neighborhoods and their future in ways that consistently strengthen societies. But giving must go beyond the symbolic gesture. It must include policy commitments, it must include funding, it must include education, as well as protection from violence. Through my work with empowerment self defense globally, I have seen this when women gain the tools to recognize danger, assert their rights, and protect themselves, something deeper happens. They begin to see themselves as deserving of safety, deserving of leadership, and deserving of opportunities. This shift is transformative. This transformation is what we refer to the empowerment piece of empowerment self-defense. Giving women the power to protect themselves and to pursue opportunities is how societies truly gain justice. It's how society truly gains stability and peace.
Okay, now I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to ask you, JB. Now, giving to gain, um doesn't it somehow spell capitalism? Like, can you not just give without looking at making gains, you know?
That's a really good question. I think the idea of gift again in the context of this year's International Women's Day event and the broader call for rights, justice, and action by the United Nations, I think it is reminding us that progress for women and girls, has never happened by accident. Given in this context, is really about giving access to rights that should already exist, the right to education, the right to safety, and the right to participate fully in society. In many parts of the world, including places like South Sudan, where our organization is, girls are not lacking ability or ambition. What they often lack is the access to the systems that protect these rights. So when we invest in women and girls through education, protection, and opportunity, we're not just helping individuals, we are advancing justice. And then we will gain this back as a global community because we get stronger societies, we get healthier families, we get more stable futures. So it's a win-win. I don't think of it in the lens of capitalism. It's a win-win because when we invest in women, we gain it back. So it's really a ultimate from conversation to action because these rights we can only gain when we protect and invest in them. That's what I think.
Okay, I'm going to ask you something else. Now, we're talking about giving women, giving them opportunities, giving them this, giving them that. Why do women always have to be given? Why can't they just take like the men do? That's for Dr. Lindsay.
Unfortunately, we are in a society, whether we think about it from a historical or from a cultural perspective, where women has always had to take second position. Sometimes we give up that power. Sometimes through our culture, we are taught that. Sometimes we adopt that because even through religion, we are taught that our place is to be subservient and submissive. And I made a comment earlier on LinkedIn where on Melinda Gates, who gave millions of dollars to women's causes. And my comment was really around, we need this money for our girls as in prevention rather than when we are all beaten up and traumatized as women. It might just be a little too late then. And so part of our education for young women and for young girls is not just about sitting there and taking it, because as we like to say, take, we forget to to help ourselves. And I think what we try to do with all our programs is to let young girls know that you have a position, you have a place in society, and that is the place and a position that you decide for yourself. You do not have to be on the taking and the handout on the receiving side of that. You can be part of taking opportunities for yourself where you are in a position to take care of yourself and take care of those around you. as a single mother and as a young teenage mother, I had to learn that experience very early because there was no one around that was going to come and save me as a teenage mother and come and save me with a baby whose father had just died. And so I lived very well and very early, and even through my family, who I thought hated me because they made me realize that that is my life and that is a life that I brought into this life and it's my responsibility. And I think through the work of ESD Global, we want to teach young girls that you can take responsibility for yourself as young as possible. You don't have to be disrespectful, but you also don't have to be submissive. Your life is in your hands. Your decisions is based on what you want for yourself. And so we promote that, and we see the change once women and young girls are realize that they have more say in their own outcomes, in their own lives. And that is the piece that I say is very transformative. And it's also the piece that you can just see women take back, young girls take back their power. And it's these kind of programs that we do every day that reminds young girls that, we're not living in the BC years where you have to, be on your knees and just take things. You are part of this world, you're part of this life, and you set your own path, and we will make sure that you have the resources to make that happen and to make that as smooth for you as possible.
Don, thank you very much for sharing. That's personal motivation, and yeah, and I also would want to ask JB Favor. Although I hear you, Don, I hear you say that yes, we give to women and girls, but we also want them to know that they can take, and we encourage them to. But now that we're talking about personal motivations, JB, do you have any personal motivation you would like to share that has motivated you into dedicating your life to empowering women and communities? It was a turning point also for you.
For me, the commitment to the work that I do really comes from my background and what I've had to witness because I grew up in Africa and also as a woman in leadership. I'm going to start with my background. I've seen what happens to communities when there is instability, when there is poverty, and then limited opportunity. And in many of these situations, girls are often the first to lose access, whether it is for opportunities or anything else. Girls are often, they've been historically and statistically marginalized for decades. And so growing up as a young girl, I came to meet that reality. There were girls before me who had the same struggles, and even girls after me. It hasn't really changed. And we talk about a lot of work that we're doing today, but somehow it doesn't seem to really, fill the gap. There's still a huge gap when it comes to opportunities for women. And I think knowing that that is my reality is something that has pushed me forward and put me into this spot. I believe that education can really change the trajectory of one's life. And so through PASS, we support South Sudan students, especially young women, because we believe that often the line that is just left for the girls to cross is just belief. They just need someone to believe in them enough to invest in them. And that is deeply personal because I have seen what happens when a girl is given an opportunity to learn and lead. I was fortunate to get that opportunity. I had parents who believed in investing in me as a girl, and I've seen where that has taken me. And I realized that the only difference between me and these other girls is not because I am the most intelligent or the most hardworking or the most talented. It's just simply because someone thought it was a worthy investment to give me an opportunity. I have been on the other side with these girls. Just most recently, last month, I went through East Africa, Uganda, South Sudan, and finally Nairobi, to meet with our students one-on-one. And I tell you that these girls are some of the most brilliant girls that I have met. And I have met a lot of girls. The way they express themselves, the things they say, and they have done this regardless of what they have been through. I have not suffered half of what some of these girls, some of whom are still in their 20s. I have never had to run away because my home country was attacked. I've never seen, my mom is alive. I've never had to watch anyone kill my family member. But these girls have gone through the harshest realities you can ever think of. And they have the audacity to still dream. And so, I mean, it's definitely a worth investment and definitely a mission that I think of every day when I wake up and get to do the work that we do. It drives me forward.
All right, thank you for sharing those perspectives and personal motivations. If you've just joined us, for those who joined a little late, our guests today are Dr. Dawn Lotane Lindsay, the Executive Director of ESD Global, and JB Favor, the Executive Director of the Paddock Area Scholars Society. And today we're looking at Give to Gain, advancing rights, justice, and opportunities for women and girls. All right, so now let's look at giving as a form of investment. You know, so we all agree that investing in women creates ripple effects far beyond individuals. And of course, the idea behind Gift to Gain suggests that when we invest in women and girls, everyone benefits, right? So this is the part I love the most, and I target success stories. So you have been giving, you have been investing, you've been doing all these good works. Do you have any success stories to share with us about, the impact or the change you have seen in the people and the communities you invest in? Let's start with Favor, and then we'll go over to Dr. Lindsay.
Okay, well, thank you. So we've been already talking about these gaps that exist when you compare girls and boys, for example. And sometimes we hear people say, well, equality means equal opportunities regardless of the gender. But I like to be very clear when I tend to distinguish this. There is already a huge disparity when it comes to opportunities for boys and girls. So it's not really equality, is it? It's equity that we're striving to really achieve, because when resources are limited, it's often the girls who are excluded. When there's war, it's the women who suffer the most. So it can't really be equality, it has to be equity. And in past, in the work that we do personally, I have seen these girls go from having to be forced after marriage, because in South Sudan, women are often held as dowry. It's really deep practice. It's often cultural to that. And so once a girl is 13, 14, 15, she finishes, maybe she's managing to get their primary or secondary education at best, she's often forced off to get married at that early age. And so that has been the reality in most of the girls in the program. And most of them have had to run away from home to go to refugee camps just because they don't want to get married so early. And about two girls that I've spoken to very recently, Arizet and Camiso, they were forced off to get married at the age of 16. And so they ran away. Arizet decided to run away to the Kuma camp, refugee camp from South Sudan. And she went there, and while she was there, she learned about the scholarship program. And learning about the scholarship program, she applied and she got in. And so she got a scholarship to go back to South Sudan to study. So right now, Arizet is a third year medical student. I spoke with her today, as a matter of fact, and she just finished her exams for the semester. She's studying to become a medical doctor. Now, this is a girl who could have been a mom at 16. She's currently 21, so probably she could have had like 4 or 5 kids. Still a teenager, if you ask me. She's still a young adult. Frontal lobe is not yet fully developed anyway, so she's still a baby. But now she's been given the opportunity to become a medical student. The next 3 or 4 years, she's going to graduate and become a doctor. There is no impact in the world that exceeds that for me. And another girl I want to talk about is Kamiso. She was in Yumbe refugee camp, which is in Uganda. And then she heard about the scholarship program, so she applied, and then she came to Uganda to study because she got it. And she wanted to attend a form of higher institution, maybe a college, but her parents could not afford that education. So they said, Kamiso, you gotta get married. And she refused. And while she was telling me her story last month, she said one day when no one was aware, late in the night, she sneaked out of home and absconded. She ran away and found her way to the refugee camp. It was there, she stayed with some friends and learned about the program. And she said that her father told her, if you want to get higher education, more than the one that we've given to you, you're going to get it yourself. And he wants nothing to do with her. And now she's studying in Kumba University in Uganda. She's studying international diplomacy. And she told me, Miss JB, I'm going to finish this degree and then I'm going to take it home and I'm going to show my dad that I did this. Now, I don't know, this is impact to me. It goes beyond saying, oh, we've served 1 million kids, we've served 10,000 kids. Not that it's bad, but this is real life. This is real people that you're seeing that their futures are changing in real time because someone, a group of people decided to invest in them. I think this is truly, truly what it means to give as an investment because now the mindset has shifted. These girls will go back to their communities and become role models for other girls. Now, the family will see the value of educating their daughters, and the community also begins to rethink what is possible for women. So, you see, what started as a support for one girl can begin to shift the mindset of an entire household or community. And that's why investing in women is so powerful because when we continue to close this gap, everyone globally benefits.
Awesome, awesome work you're doing. Wow, just the kind of stories I like to hear. Before we hear from you, Dr. Lindsay, I would like every other person who's joined us, if you have a question or two for Dr. Lindsay and for JB Favor, you can put it in the chat box. They may be able to take one or two questions, at the end of this conversation. All right, so Dr. Lindsay, success stories. Share some with us, please.
Adanma, I want to answer with I want to go back to my personal motivation answer that I had prepared for you in answering this question for you. Um, JB had mentioned, the gap in opportunities for boys and girls. And I wanted to just bring to the attention of a lot of people out there. I didn't get my education until I came to the United States. I came here 16 years ago with no high school diploma, but I was always a business owner. If there's one thing I knew how to do, it was how to run a business. And I want to highlight the fact that sometimes we push people to say, go get a degree, not understanding the dynamics in the place where they are, in the country where they are, the culture, all of that. We see this playing out through even my home country in South Africa. Our young people have degrees, but there's no jobs for them. Right. And so now you sit with that piece of paper that says, hey, I'm a this, or I'm a CPA, I'm an accountant, and whatever. And our young people feel disillusioned because they've gone through this path of getting that degree, and now there's no jobs. I see it play out here in the United States, where we now have our students with bachelor's degrees are serving meals at McDonald's. And so I want to make sure that people understand that those gaps for our girls need to be, we need to teach our girls how to identify those gaps, how to prepare themselves to take up space within those gaps. For me, being that young girl that didn't have a high school diploma, I identified my gap the gap in the construction industry. I said to myself, as a woman, there's not many of us there. And if I was going to make a dent in anywhere, it would be in the construction sector. I was one of very few women, even in my country, one of the first to receive an award from Nelson Mandela as one of the first Black women in my country to take up space in the construction field. I came to the United States and nobody wanted to employ me because I didn't have a degree. And again, I identified the gap where there were no women, and that was in the oil and gas field here in the United States. So I started a business in the oil and gas field. And I can remember going up to General Motors CEO when I met in their office. And this guy looked at me and he said to me, I'm running one of the biggest Fortune 500 companies in the world, and you're here to sell me something. I said, yes, I want to sell you diesel and petrol. And he says, he took me to the window and he said, there's a gas station on every corner. Who can buy it from them? Why should I buy it from you? And something in my mind just told me, tell him your damn story. And I immediately closed down my presentation. And from that point forward, I was not selling him gasoline and diesel. From that point forward, I was telling him my story as a young girl who grew up in apartheid South Africa, where inequality was not theoretical, but it was embedded in law, it was embedded in daily life, it was embedded in those opportunities that were not created for us as girls. As a young person, I witnessed how systems can restrict people's dignity and our safety, particularly for us women and marginalized communities. Later, as a businesswoman and a construction professional, when I saw firsthand how women were excluded from those industries and leadership roles, that motivated me. It motivated me to start teaching our young women and our young girls those practical skills, including construction. I trained over 2,000 women how to build houses. They could literally build their own homes and their own futures. But another turning point was recognizing how violence and fear silently limits our movements. It limits our thinking. It limits us even identifying those gaps. So many women adjust their movements, we adjust our ambitions, we adjust our choices around the threat of harm. There was many occasions I was the only woman on site. And I was in the leader on the site. I had a site where I had 500 men that I had to manage. They tested me on every aspect. But that fear of them harming me was not there. That realization led me to empowerment self defense, where the goal is not only physical safety, but restoring agency and voice. You have to see the gaps, but you must be able to take up agency. You must be willing and brave to to speak up and give the voice to the industry. And so my life's work has always been about helping people, especially women and girls, understand that their safety, their dignity, and opportunity are non negotiable rights. It is your right to be in that industry. Figure it out, get next to people that will teach you the industry. And sometimes it's not even just about the degree. As I said, I was a businesswoman long before I was even a degreed person, long before I was a doctor. I knew how to do business. And I think, especially for girls in Africa, we have to give them an alternative. We have to show them how they can be economically empowered beyond that degree.
Oh, wow, that's a whole lot to digest. But let me start by saying one of the things that jumped out while you were speaking for me was that you were your own first success story, and it hits different. I mean, wow. Okay, and now when you also were talking, you talked about some of the fears and challenges, that women could face. And that leads me into this question, and I'm going to direct this one to JB Favor. We've been having a lot of conversations about gender equality, but women still face systemic barriers. So, apart from what Dr. Lindsay has talked about, being the only woman in a field dominated by men and being tested on all levels, what are some of the challenges you see today that, women face, and what has to happen? Like, how do they overcome it?
One barrier that I see globally, and even though we often celebrate empowerment, you know, somehow we resist it structurally. And I think awareness is great, but I believe we have a lot of these organizations and channels for awareness, but we have less for action. We hold conferences about gender equality, but we're still underfund the organizations doing the hardest work. We applaud women leadership, but we distrust when women lead. So it doesn't make sense. Women are often more likely to be resisted in leadership than men. But we applaud women leadership. We say we should make spaces for women. But do we make these spaces bearable? Do we make these spaces accessible? Do we allow these women to thrive in the so-called spaces that we applaud them for being in? These are the questions. And today, women still lack access to capital, they lack access to safety, and even in positions of decision making, they're likely to be undermined. They're most likely to be questioned. And I think another challenge is also that we treat these inequality as a social issue. It is not, or at least to me. I believe it's more of also an economic and political priority. Because let's look at it this way, when girls drop out of school, when they cannot go to school, for example, when women cannot participate safely in society, when they are often under supported, that is not a gender issue. This is a development failure. When women in leadership are mistrusted, they are questioned. This is this is more than just a gender issue. We cannot keep limited it to that. So I think the biggest shift that we need to make is to stop treating women's empowerment as a side conversation and recognize it as something that is central to global stability and progress. And then when we do that, then we will be able to tackle some of the systemic barriers that currently exist.
Okay, so I'm going to say yes, and the questions have started coming in. You can put your questions in the chat box, all your questions. Maybe after this, we'll take one or two. But I'm going to ask you, JB, when we talk about advancing rights and justice for women, it is not something that women can do alone. We all agree, to that. Okay, so what responsibility does government have? What does the everyday allies, what role do they play in the giving that we've been talking about, so that society can truly gain all that they can when women thrive?
Thank you so much, Dan, for that. I do agree that governments need to invest more in education and safety, and also that institutions need to create pathways for more women to lead. But it's also more of that communities, because we can start small. It's possible to do big things from a small place. So we can really start from the grassroots, which is also why I think the work we do at PASS is important, because the girls that we support, we believe that education, and just like Dr. Lindsay, Dawn Lindsay had been talking about, how the degree is just one part of it. We agree at PASS that, getting a degree is just one half of the equation, because even with the scholarships that we provide, we have learned from our work that there are still systemic barriers that make it even difficult for them to graduate, regardless of the fact that they have scholarships. So it goes far beyond giving the scholarships. It definitely goes further than the degrees. And that's exactly what Dr. Don was saying. So I think particularly we need to challenge the cultural norms that limit goals. More people speaking more and more training for the younger generation. These girls are the future leaders. There's only so much you and I can do, but the ones behind this, the girls behind this, they could do so much more. And by giving them education, access, and opportunity to not just survive but thrive, then we'll be empowering the next generation of leaders who can come to do better. And when it comes to allies, particularly men, they have a role to play in asking difficult questions in their own spaces. And it's very easy to be complacent just because you're not really doing anything wrong, but you need to speak up because it's not only a women's fight. All of us must decide that this is unacceptable for us to win.
I would like to add to JB. You said that women's safety is not a social issue. I want to also highlight that education for girls is justice. We look at our curriculums, we look at our degrees, we look at our schooling, and it's still designed from a male perspective. Education is one of the most powerful tools for justice because it expands both opportunity and our young people's imagination. When young women receive education, several critical things happen. They get economic independence that, becomes possible. Early marriage and exploitation decreases. They have better health outcomes. Future generations gain when they gain opportunity. But education in itself must include more than just academic knowledge. It must include leadership development. It must include economic literacy, and it must include safety and rights education. And so, again, I agree with you, JB. It is not a social issue that should be part of education as justice. And so, again, our curriculum fail, our education systems fail young girls and women, where they all sit in classes that is designed from a male perspective. When young women understand both their potential and their rights within education, they themselves become architects of change for themselves and for other women. Education doesn't change individuals. It changes entire social trajectories. And so I agree with you that safety should not be a social issue, but should be built into the justice of education for girls.
All right. Now, before I take a question from the chat box, there is a question that I believe might be on the minds of some people here, because I believe that this is the first time a number of people here are getting to encounter ESD Global. So I'm directing this question to Dr. Lindsay. Empowerment, self-defense. Okay. Self-defense. What exactly do you do? Do you teach people how to beat up other people? I mean, when you say self-defense.
No, I do not. Empowerment, self-defense is all about safety and empowerment. How empowerment-based safety education changes perceptions and lives. Fear is one of the most powerful barriers to opportunity. Many women grow up internalizing messages like don't walk there, don't go there, don't speak up, stay quiet. This is not your place. This is for men only. This game is for boys only. Empowerment self-defense shifts that narrative. Instead of teaching women and girls how to avoid danger, ESD teaches them that their boundaries, their self determined boundaries matter. Their voices are powerful. That shouldn't be drowned out, they shouldn't be silenced. And that they have the right to defend themselves. Defending themselves meaning they have the right towards keeping themselves safe, just like everybody else does. Participants of ESD often describe a profound psychological shift after they've been through a empowerment self-defense class. They begin to see themselves not as potential victims, but as active agents in their own safety and their own lives and those of others, other girls and women in their lives. That confidence carries into every area of their lives, into education, leadership, entrepreneurship, and community participation. And so ESD is all about making sure that women know their own power. They engage their own power. They seek deep within themselves to say, I am responsible for my own safety, and I have the right tools and I have the right support system to make sure that I can do so freely.
And we also teach people to beat up other people. Yeah. So don't try me. Any of you, don't try me. Okay. All right. That was just an aside. Okay, so we'll take the question in the chat box and I'll direct this to JB Favor. This is from Gibson Gisor, and it says, what is the one thing that we can change in the world to ensure every girl has the power to shape the future, maybe in Africa, then the whole world?
Really good question. I think looking at it from the lens of the work that I do, I would say is invested in education for women, more more education, and like Dr. Dawn mentioned, education, as we know, goes far beyond the classroom, goes far beyond getting the degrees, but also, knowledge is not restricted to the academic field. You can get a degree, but you still would not do well in life if you are not knowledgeable in certain other areas. And I think for women, that investment is exceptionally crucial because when we invest in women, and I think it's one changing the perspective of how we look at it. It's not charity because if you are, let me take you to the corporate world. If you own a startup or some form of program and you're building something as maybe a SaaS, a software as a service or a product that's you're offering to users, and you have some VCs who are interested in that product or service. The way the lens that they look at it is not charity because you have investors flying in and giving checks in millions. Why? Because they believe that you have a product that is worth such investment. So even though technically the money is going to help the company, they're not looking at it in that lens. They're seeing it as an investment that of course is going to yield high high returns to them. And so they're happy to invest in it. But I think that perspective shapes even the discussion, the narrative, the framing surrounding that given. So it's framed as venture capital, it's framed as investment. But when we talk about women, when we talk about the work we do in the nonprofit sector, especially, we hear things like charity. It's been framed as you're helping someone who cannot help themselves, you're helping someone who is the framing sort of is very limiting and it affects the discussion globally. So the lesson here is that when we are when we look at it from the lens of investing, when we give to funding education for women and girls as an investment, we can look at it in the lens of we're multiplying impact. And that giving does not always mean money. It can mean giving time. It can mean giving advocacy. It can mean giving space for women's voices. It can mean giving trust in women's leadership. And it starts around you. I always tell people you don't have to work with the United Nations to cause change. It starts around you. The woman in your life, the women in your circles, the women where you work with, the women who are around you, the ones offering a service, the one who are builders, the one who are, around you. How do you support these women? These are where the conversations actually starts from the grassroots because the UN is doing great work and its partners, but when you come to the grassroots level, there's still a lot of lack of awareness. There's still a lot of backwardness. When you go to the streets, you ask the people in the grassroots, they lack education in terms of, gender equity and empowerment for women. They're still backwards. So I think each of us, if we can start small and ask ourselves, in what way can I invest in a woman today? Especially in Women's History Month today, we could use this month as a month to reflect and ask ourselves, how am I supporting a woman in my life today? And also, more importantly, am I being a part of investing in education for women? Because that's extremely important. When we do that, we will be able to have women who are not just academically supported, but they are also being mentored. There are women who know their rights, they're aware of their rights, and they can stand up for themselves. And you see that multiplies the possibilities for them. So that would be my take on that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I was going to ask for a call to action, but you've already given a call to action. So I'm just going to take Don's call to action. Do you have one?
Yeah, I want to add to that, as a South African and African, I also grew up with our different cultures, religions, and I want to agree that, change can happen right there. I grew up with kangaroo courts and street justice and all of that as well. And so my one meaningful action would probably be to invest in prevention. Again, when I commented on Melinda Gates giving millions to women, I am saying in that moment, I was saying you are investing in the symptoms. You are investing after the fact. I want to see the investment as prevention, and that means preventing it when our women are still girls. Why are we investing in the women when the damage are already done? When we invest for prevention, the work starts early. It starts with our communities. It starts with redirecting our culture. It starts with redirecting our street justice. It starts with that. And then it also supports educating our girls on, like I said, on their rights, on their boundaries, on what they can and cannot do for themselves. Also teaches safety and empowerment on a community grassroots level. And it also promotes healthy leadership among men and boys. We have changed our scope for ESD Global, where we were all about women and girls. We have decided to incorporate men and boys because they are the other side to the same coin. We can't just treat the symptoms. We can't just treat, here's the problem. We have to look at the whole community and say, men and boys, you need as much education as our girls do. Our girls need to step up and you need to step back. Um, and stepping back, not meaning that you're giving up your power, but you're redressing that power, you're repackaging that power. And when you stand next to your sister, your cousin, your niece, your aunt, your mother, your grandmother, you standing next to that woman as her ally, as her first line of protection next to her, and not as her opposition. Prevention changes lives before harm occurs. Everybody in the community is responsible for making sure that that harm never occurs. Every person, whether an individual, an institution, or government, can contribute by asking themselves, what can I give today that will allow women and girls to gain safety, to gain opportunity, and have dignity tomorrow? Because when women and girls thrive, humanity thrives. We have a saying in South Africa during apartheid, if you strike a woman, you strike a rock. We know the power of women. It was the women in South Africa that led our freedom. They led those activists. Our men were in jail. Madiba was locked up for 27 years. Men understand the power of women and girls. And it's not about giving their power away. It's about sharing that power for us as a community, for us as a region, for us as a country to thrive. And I think that message needs to go out as education also for our men and our boys. So as I say, we have to not just educate our young girls and women, we also have to educate our boys and our men. I keep my son responsible for how he treats me as his mother. I keep him responsible for how he treats his wife, his sisters, his grandmother, and people in the community. And I get it all the time. I get compliments of how well my son treats other women. And I want to say that from even, we're in Ramadan now. The Muslims believe that the gateway to heaven is at your mother's feet. And so your mother was once a girl. And if heaven is at her feet, if the gateway to heaven is at your mother's feet, then surely that gateway to heaven is at a young girl's feet as well. And so, let's partner together on educating ourselves for a much safer community.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. We could go on and just spend the rest of the day here. I mean, powerful words from JB, powerful words from Dawn. JB says, when we invest, we are multiplying impact, and encourages that the best way to invest is to invest in education. And Dawn says, yes, she agrees that we should invest in education, but we should also invest in prevention. Do not wait until harm has already been done before you start seeking for solutions. Stop it before it gets bad. All right. We started 5 minutes late, and so we're 2 minutes into. Okay. Thank you. As a father of two beautiful kids, Duke and Chelsea, you have all touched my heart. Oh, thank you very much for that comment. So I would like to wrap up right now, but I see it seems like JB has something to add. Is there anything you would like to add?
Absolutely not. The only thing I'd like to add is that I would like to introduce our organization and ask people to go to learn about what we do. And I think again, like I mentioned when we first began this meeting, I I absolutely agree with the strategic approach that ESD has towards empowerment of women. Because maybe the days where there were times in the past where education was enough. It isn't enough these days. It's not enough anymore. There there has to be a lot more than just education. And we believe that we believe that wraparound support eliminating the barriers that could make the girls and the youth in the scholarship program drop out of school are targeted, then we would better increase their chances. We view it in the lens of education, mentorships, and wraparound support because we believe that when you combine all of these forces, then you can truly secure the futures of these youth who are in the scholarship program. And that's basically what Dawn and yourself have been, hitting the nail on. And I absolutely agree with that. I would like to encourage anyone who's here to go look at both organizations, ESD Global and Pass USA. Go see the work that we're doing. And again, when we're talking about giving to gain, it's not just about giving us money, which would be great, but that's not what it's all about. You can give to us advocacy. You can give in the essence of supporting, telling a friend. Somebody needs to know about what ESD is doing. Somebody needs to know about what PASS is doing. So when you are an evangelist for an organization who is on the fight to empowering women, then you are truly supporting women. So we're talking about a call to action. That's one call to action. If there's anything else to add, that's that from me. Thank you.
you.
All right. I think this is a good place to call it a wrap. Thank you so much, Dr. Lindsay and JB, for sharing your insights. Yes, for and for the powerful work you continue to do to expand opportunity, to expand safety, to expand justice for women and girls around the world. And for everyone, as we commemorate International Women's Day, this year's theme, Give to Gain, reminds us that every action counts. When we give knowledge, when we give resources, when we give protection, when we give opportunities and support to women and girls, the entire world gains. Okay, so let this be more than just a celebration. Let it be a reminder that advancing equality requires all of us, individuals, communities, institutions, governments, to play our parts. And let's do so. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for joining us. Remember to check us out on www.esdglobalselfdefense.org and pass at, where do we check you out? Your website. Okay. But just check out the works both organizations do. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And we will make this link available on our social media channels so you can get to rewatch and share this. Yes, okay. So for PASS is www.southsudanpass.org. That's SOUTHSUDAN pass.org. All right. All right, then. Bye-bye, everyone. And see you next
Thank you.
year.
Bye-bye. Bye.
I thank you all.
Bye.